Okay, so I think we are delayed as Advait said. People are still having a good lunch looks like. So let them come slowly. But let's not wait for all of them. We have to achieve our objectives. So I am Ashank Desai. I am of course track leader here and you will have to bear with me next 1.5 hours. I come here as, of course, chairman of Wheels India. Wheels is an organization which is in partnership with Pan IIT. And these two tracks that we have, this one and other parallel to it is run by Wheels. And Wheels is actually an organization started by IITians many years ago that way. In 2006, when I had organized Mumbai Pan IIT, Mumbai I went 16 years ago, 18 years ago, a similar event. And Abdul Kalam was that time addressed to us, saying that what you are doing for country. You have got a good education, you are doing well, please give back to the nation. And that inspired this group of IITians from US who had come here. Some of them are here, Mr. Shenoy, then Hiten, and so on, Hiten Ghosh, and so on. They started this organization called Wheels. It was not very active for a few years, but last 7-8 years, we have been extremely active. Wheels has some importance to the track that we are speaking. So I must talk about Wheels here. Wheels is about W, which is water. H is about health. E is about education. Second E is about energy. L is about livelihood. And S is about sustainability. So our idea of Wheels is to work in rural and semi-urban area. Rural and semi-urban, we are not doing in urban area, that's not our focus. So work with the people who are poor, who needs upliftment in all these areas that I talked. We have a large vision, of course. We would like to impact at some stage, maybe 5 years, 7, 8 years, 10 years from now, at least 20% of people in these areas of rural and urban all over India. So we have a very tall vision. It will all have to be done step by step, as you would guess. But I'll quickly give you an overview of what we are doing presently. In water, we have done a lot of work in Himachal Pradesh, in rural areas again, to do a work where stream of water get wasted, how to use it. Beyond that, we are now working in the Delhi area also in this particular track. We have a few other areas in water too. We don't have time to talk all that because you have all come to hear also our speakers here. In health, we are doing very interesting work. We have got even some doctors from US. Some of them are here, Dr. Raj Shah, Bindu Kansupada. They have not IITians, but they are part of us as a group. And they said that we would like to do something with you. And we are doing a lot of work in telemedicine area in multiple states today as we speak. In education, we are very interesting. Our one Mr. Professor Kannan is heading that track for education, and he has something what is called as spoken tutorials, which is about training. Earlier in his past 7-8 years, he was working in the area of IT education through spoken tutorial. Again, I don't have time to go into all the details, so I'll be very brief. But we are now using it in Madhya Pradesh for health area in terms of training the maternity and other ASHA workers, etc., for getting them about women health and women-related issues and so on. In energy, we are also doing some work. And livelihood, we are doing very interesting work in Aravalli. And some of that we are talking today may have some implication to it. Aravalli is a place very near between Rajasthan and Gujarat. It's a district, and we are working there with 5-6 villages. We also have partnership there with IEEE, and there we are doing village transformation through building livelihood amongst the people, poor people there, through skill education. So skills is one particular track that we are doing. We are working with IEEE, as I said, and we do that kind of work there. Then next one that is of importance is we also have in livelihood, we are trying to train the poor villagers to become entrepreneurs in terms of the products that they can make and sell. And there is an organization called Sweri in Pandharpur. And Wheels has a partnership with the Sweri. And we are supporting the Sweri organization. And there is a movement going to be in terms of entrepreneurship building, which is also a livelihood issue. And we also have now signed up with what is called as Rural Shores. Rural Shores is an organization which does a BPO with the rural people. They really train the people who are rural in or semi-urban area, and they then deliver BPO services to Indian customers in banks, insurance, and so on. It's again amazing story by itself, and we have again tied up. Wheels has tied up with Rural Shores to see that they can go to more villages. Again, the livelihood part of what Wheels is doing. So what is Wheels? Wheels is not doing something themselves. Wheels is a catalyst. Wheels is about seeing that the large organizations which are doing some interesting work can be supported, particularly those who are driving through technology, because Wheels is about IIT people, technology people. So one of our aims is to see that technology is used to make change happen in rural areas, which is what the session today is. And what we are trying to do there is creating a mass of large number of NGOs who are working and helping them to scale, helping them to connect with the kind of technology connection we have in US with our US people, IITians and others. We have connections in India because we have at a highest level, we have partnership with Niti Aayog in certain areas, with MP government in certain areas, and so on and so forth. Under our name and credibility, people want to partner with us. We can help all these NGOs to scale up. So that's the way we are acting. We are a catalyst, but we have a large aim. So Wheels India has a board in US and board in India, and I am chairman of that India board, which is looking at implementation of all these projects in all the states. I'll talk a little bit more if time permits later, but now let me start straight with this track. As you know, this track is about using technology in agri-tech area and rural areas, and we'll debate and we'll speak to many of these organizations who are doing some interesting work. We have speakers, we have panel discussions. I'll introduce them as they come one after another. But to start with, we have our real star speaker here in Dr. Deshpande. Give him a big hand. So Desh, many of you know, I am not going to kind of spend a lot of time introducing him because he has done such a great work earlier as an entrepreneur. He was a very successful, he's from IIT Madras and then went to US, and he's done a great work as an entrepreneur, and now he has established a Deshpande Foundation, which is doing some tremendously important work in Hubli. Dharwad is his headquarters. He's doing work all over India, I'm sure, but working as creating sandboxes, particularly, and creating entrepreneurship, leadership to make change happen in rural areas. And I think he is an example for many other philanthropists as to follow his model. And he's a good friend for many years. I have gone there, seen what he has done, and really inspired the kind of work that we do. I don't want to spend a lot of time to embarrass him, I'm sure, with all the great work that he's doing. But what he's going to talk is technology to make change happen is what our motto, as I said, in Wales. However, he has a viewpoint which we all should be listening very carefully is what is a technology which is working very well today all over India. There is an India stack, there is Aadhaar. All this is working fine, maybe mostly in urban areas and many other technologies. We have to be sensitive to what it means to do same thing in rural areas. With his great experience in rural and villages and making transformation happen, I think there can't be a better person than him to talk about this important change or important focus or important perspective that we need to have in Wales as well as all of you to make change happen. So can I invite Desh? Please give him a big hand.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you, Ashank. I want to leave you with some very simple messages. And, we all come from the technology background, most of us in this room. And the world has about 8 billion people. And you can split them up into 3 billion people who have disposable income and about 5 billion people who don't have disposable income. And if you look at government, entrepreneurs, universities, or each one of us as individuals, all of us try to live our life trying to make a difference in the lives of these two sets of people. But the way you make a difference in the life of these two sets of people is a little different. When people have disposable income, like everybody else in this room, you have options. So when you have options, people have to compete for the opportunity to make a difference in the lives of these people, the people who have disposable income. They're not going to say just because you have something that they would buy into it. You have to bring something new, something innovative. So if you want to make a difference in the lives of the people with disposable income, you need something innovative, competitive, something better than what they would get from anywhere else. And in fact, that's what drives the economy. That's what's happened in the last 50 years in terms of innovation, entrepreneurship, and startups and everything else. And they've really found a way and a whole ecosystem to accelerate that change. So entrepreneurs are coming up with all kinds of new ideas, innovative ideas, and building these startups. And they do benefit the people who have disposable income. And then, so if you look at so for the people with disposable income, you need innovation. You need something new. If you don't have anything new, either a business model, a technology, or something that makes it cheaper, better, faster, you don't have anything. So innovation becomes extremely important. But for that innovation to have an impact, it has to meet relevance. So I want you to remember this formula because you're all engineers. So I just want to leave you with two formulas at the end of the talk. So relevance plus innovation is equal to impact. And in fact, the foundation started in 95, and the first probably 10, 15 years or so, we are primarily focused on this group of people. And I've been on the board of MIT for the last 25 years. I joined there in 2000. And in 2002, we set up the Center for Technological Innovation at MIT. And so what was the idea behind that center? The idea was that in most of the places, innovators innovate. Whether it's a think tank, policymakers in Delhi, or whoever, these are all very smart people. And when you get these smart people and you want them to innovate, you cannot mandate innovation. You have to give them the freedom to come up with ideas. But whenever you get a lot of very smart people together, it becomes clubby. And naturally, even though they have a deep desire for impact, they move further and further away from the real world. And so they get more into impressing each other rather than the impact. So if you want to have an innovative environment, have an impact on the world, you have to have a very conscious effort to connect innovators to relevance. And so that was the experiment at the MIT, which became very successful very quickly. And then we worked with the National Science Foundation to roll out a nationwide program called ICORE in US. And over the last 6 years or so, we feel that India needs it just as much as US, because that program in US last year alone generated about 2,500 companies. So for the last 6 years, we've been working with IIT Madras to roll out this program called Incubate, which is modeled after the ICORE in US, to make sure that the innovators who have a desire for impact have a way to connect with their relevance to the marketplace. And so, but all of this really helps the people who have disposable income. When it comes to the, and there's a lot going on. You know, we have heard about a lot of these technologies, which are, it's amazing. You know, I get to see them. In fact, I saw how the COVID vaccine was developed. You know, the DNA for the virus was available on January 23rd. By January 30th, Moderna, which is a company that came out of MIT, actually had the vaccine. And then it took about 9 months to go through the efficacy and safety and all those things. But it's just mind-boggling what's going on with all these innovations. But all these innovations will primarily affect the people with disposable income. And there's also some trickle-down that happens. You know, for example, cell phones, even though they were primarily used by the people who had disposable income, over the course of time, it's really seeped down and it benefits the people at the bottom of the pyramid. But if you really want to focus on the people who don't have disposable income, you have to start a little differently. You have to start with relevance. You know, when people are struggling to just get through the day, they don't need a solution that's the most competitive, patentable solution. They need a solution that's most relevant. And if you are able to find a solution that really makes a difference in their lives, then you have to create capacity. You have to create capacity within those communities so that they can absorb those ideas. And then if you're lucky enough to have an opportunity to scale it, then slowly you can start injecting technology, strategic planning, financial engineering, and a lot of the other things that you use in the other part of the economy. But you can't start with technology, you know, and that's a mistake that most of the people, I think, my colleagues make from US and software industry and so on. They all ask the wrong question. You know, the question that most of us ask is that, you know, what is it that I'm good at and what is it that I can do to help the people who are not doing that well? Unfortunately, it turns out to be the wrong question, because when you do that, you start with coming up with an idea, and that idea may or may not be relevant. You know, whenever you start a company, or you know that the first thing you have to do is to understand your customer base. And we all live in a certain way, and the customer base that you're trying to help is so different than the way we live, we think, and everything else. It's very hard to design products for them unless you actually work with them and you get them to lead that whole process of trying to define what products we should come up with. And so it's very important that you work with the people, the relevance first, and then you slowly start injecting innovation into it. In fact, this is a big part of the problem why the progress in the bottom of the pyramid is so slow. Because what happens is that, you know, for example, in US, it's a $400 billion sector, the philanthropy. And so anybody from MIT, Harvard, Stanford, you know, can go to the foundations and say, give me $25 million, poverty solved, hunger solved. And they will actually get that money. And these are all very sincere people. And so the professor and the graduate students and the postdocs and so on, they'll work really hard for 2-3 years, and they'll come up with an idea. They'll write a white paper, they'll write a textbook. And And their pressure is that they have to come up with an idea that's just a little bit more complex than what the previous guy did, right? If the previous one was fourth order polynomial, he has to come up with a solution that's fifth order polynomial, because otherwise he won't be able to publish the paper, he won't be able to get the recognition and so on. So what's happened is that in some ways, a lot of the very smart people in the world who are very, very genuine about having an impact on the world just keep coming up with a lot of these ideas. So we've become a poverty alleviation idea generation factory, whereas the people for whom we are trying to come up with all these solutions don't even have the capacity to absorb the simplest of these ideas. And so we have to somehow make sure that we avoid that trap, where we lead any improvement in the sector with ideas, stop leading with ideas and really start with the relevance. So, we've been working on this concept. I mean, it's a very difficult sector to work in. For the last probably 20 years or so, the center is based in Hubli, and we have a lot of these beautiful campuses. So this is our skilling campus, where we skill the young men and women from villages. And then we also have a startup where entrepreneurs are trying to come up with products and services for the people in the tier 2 cities and rural India. So if I were to, so one of the programs that we do is a farm pond program, where we dig a hole that's 100 feet by 100 feet by 12 feet in a private farm of a farmer who has 3 to 4 to 5 acres, and that collects the rainwater, and that rainwater will irrigate the land and get him a higher income. We've done about 15,000 of these, and because you got the scale, we have now the ability to use a lot of the satellite technology, track the moisture and the soil and so on. And so it gives you an opportunity to use advanced technologies for the benefit of these simpler solutions, but you can't start here and get there. You can start there, and then you can add value by embracing these technologies. So you can actually map things, and you can see the land is green and so on. The other sector that we work on is skilling. A lot of the young men and women in villages, they get BA, BSc, BCom, all kinds of degrees, so it's 15 years of education. But in some of these places, not a single person has ever gotten a job. So we have a program where we use flipped classrooms, we use a lot of technology to actually start training these people. We've trained about 20,000 of them, and we're trying to find ways to scale it. So even technology has enabled a lot of people. But if you look at it, when you have people with disposable income and people without disposable income, and then let's break them up into people who are highly motivated, which should be maybe 1% or less of the population, and then the rest of the people. When people have disposable income and they're very highly motivated, it's just heaven right now, because they have access to anything they want, and they're highly motivated, so they're going to do extraordinarily well. People who are not that motivated but do have disposable income, the free market economy takes care of it. There will be enough private schools, private tutorials, and all that kind of stuff. But when you come to the people who don't have disposable income, primarily rural India, there is an opportunity for the very highly motivated people to now access the online education and a lot of the other things, and they will really benefit the big way. But for the majority of the people, they don't even know that they should be studying. They've lost hope. It's not like they see opportunities to use the technology or are highly motivated to reach out and see those things. So you still have to do this tough task of reaching the last mile, creating role models within those villages, and getting people to believe in themselves that they can actually do better than what they're doing right now. And so that part of the hard work, I think, still remains. But I can see how the technology is going to make that job easier and easier. So So in conclusion, most of us come from the top. Most of us have practiced, most of us live in the community who have disposable income. But a lot of us have desire to help the people at the bottom. And if you want to do that, I think we have a lot of capabilities. People in this room, you have good education, you have access to a lot of knowledge, you have access to resources and all those things. But let's find a good way to bridge that to the benefit of the people at the bottom. Because I think it's very difficult to bridge and help those people unless you really get to know them. So that's why I think that relevance becomes extremely important. So over the last 20 years, what have we learned? So it's again, repetition of what I told you so far. It's really, first of all, building the trust. In the rural India, what happens is there's just so many NGOs. There's about 3 million NGOs in India and also 3 million NGOs in US. And so there is so many people who just bombard these people with all kinds of ideas and whatever. And most of these ideas are not fully baked. They're half-baked. And then there's government programs. So after a while, what happens is people lose the trust with the organizations that bring these solutions to them. And then it becomes very hard to penetrate their customer base and really make a difference in their lives. So first you have to build the trust with these people, and then you have to build capacity within those communities, and then you have to co-create the solution with them, and then collaborate. We have to work with other people who are also, because the lives here are so complex and their problems are so multitude that even though you're solving one problem, that one problem will not solve the whole thing. So it's going to take a lot of people to be working on lots of different problems. Now, community participation is very important. What do I mean by that? Part of the reason why the for-profit sector works so well is because the customer pays you for the services that you give him. So if the customer is not happy with what you're doing, you'll be out of business. And that feedback loop is a very powerful feedback loop to make sure that whatever you're doing is useful for the people that you're working for. In the nonprofit, unfortunately, the people who pay money for the interventions are not the people whom you're trying to benefit. And therefore, that feedback loop gets lost. And so there is huge amount of compassion, but there may not be execution excellence in the nonprofit world. So one of the things that we do is that we make the beneficiary actually pay at least a part of it, of the cost of the intervention. That way, it brings dignity to them because they're paying for what they're getting, and also this powerful feedback loop to make sure that we're doing something for which they value and they're willing to pay for it. So, I think more and more I see people really very desirous, particularly the younger generation, who really have their heart in the right place and want to help the people. So I'm hoping that all of us can get together and lead with really understanding their problem, making sure that anything that we do is relevant to them, and we build their trust, and then bring forth the technology to really help scale those solutions, because it's a country with 1.4 billion people, and if you just do a few thousand here and a few thousand there, we're not going to be able to solve a systemic problem. So it's very, I'm very encouraged about what the next decade can bring for this country, and I hope we can all collaborate to bring forth some good solutions. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Desh. Actually, when I met Desh just before this event some time back, I said, I want to wait and hear your one-line statement which is impactful. So I didn't ask him what it will be this time, because I said I must wait. Because I remember a similar thing I heard him some 4-5 years ago in some of thing where he summarized a difference between for-profit organizations, and he was advising how to run NGOs. So he explained it again with a similar equation, saying that business organization is about efficiency, excellence, but plus compassion. You need a compassion for people, compassion for your stakeholders, and then you can make results happen. Now he says, this is fine for businesses, you can't run non-profits like that. And he reversed it, saying that it is compassionate first, is fine. However, they think only compassion is enough. That's not enough. You have to do efficiency too. They can't worry about, they should worry about how they can be effective. Compassionate is required, that is first thing, but don't forget efficiency. So I have been using his paradigm with his permission in many places that I speak Desh. So today he explained to us relevance and innovation, how innovation is important for urban areas and well-to-do, important. Relevance is, of course, to be done, but relevance more important. And we are learning it, by the way. To this audience, I would like to tell you, we are making transformation in wheels in rural areas, and Desh, the point that you made, that trust has to be first established, is something we miss. We started some work in that place, and we suddenly realized that there was a mistrust in terms of who are these guys and so on and so forth. Then a lot of work was done to make that happen, and things are moving in a place in a very different way. So some of what you have listed, there is actually a checklist of how to make transformation happen. Thanks for your great speech.